Welcome back to the session. Welcome to the EAYVP Rapid Fire Chat session. So in continuation of the previous session, this morning, we are going to listen about communication in crisis and challenging situation by Associate Professor Dr. Abdul Latif Ahmad. A little bit about Associate Professor Dr. Abdul Latif. He is an Associate Professor at UKM. He is currently a Director of International Relations Center UKM Global, and a Senior Lecturer in the Center for Communication and Digital Society, Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities UKM. He was previously the Deputy Director of UKM Global since 2014. He obtained his Bachelor of Arts Honours in Politics and International Relations from University of Kent, UK, Masters in Mass Communication from UiTM Shah Alam, Malaysia, and his PhD in Communication Studies from University of Queensland, Australia. He is currently the Malaysian Regional Vice President for the World Communication Association and also the community member of the National Strategic Communication Committee under the Higher Education Department of Ministry of Education, Malaysia. He is also a Fulbright alumni. His research interests include intercultural communication and internationalization. Without further ado, I think Dr. Latif is ready. I
Hi,
would like to
Naim.
welcome to the
Yeah.
session
Hi,
Associate
thank you.
Professor Dr. Abdul Latif. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope all of you are well today. It is so nice to see such exciting group of people. All of you look very, very excited to be a part of this event. I am currently going to share my screen. I hope that you guys can see it. Can you see the screen?
Yes, doctor.
Yes?
Doctor.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
Dr.
Wow,
Yes,
so
yes.
many familiar faces as well. So that's nice. I see you there, John. Hi. All right. Assalamualaikum. Hello and greetings. Welcome. In a way, this is welcome to Malaysia. I've been informed that there are participants, over 400 participants in total. I know some students are viewing this from your respective, either the Zoom platform or also FB Live. This is so exciting for the ASEAN Youth Volunteer Program. I am excited to see all of you here. Thank you for sending in your submission and congratulations on being accepted for this event. I am very, very honored to have all of you to listen to this talk. And for this year, the theme is redesigning the education in the new normal. Okay. In terms of what we can see from the theme this year, there's a lot of things that has been changed accordingly. I mean, being a university student, I believe that all of you would have gone through so many changes in the whole year, isn't it? 2020 has been such a challenging year for a lot of us. Some of us say, can we just repeat next year to this year again, because we want to disqualify 2020 because so many things have changed. I don't mind that, because that means I get to be the same age again next year and I'll be able to be younger for another extra year. But I would just like to share with all of you, and Naim has actually gave a very good introduction on me. I'm the director of the International Relations Center, UKM Global, and I've been working very, very hard with the internationalization efforts of the university. Now, thank you to UCTC for inviting me as well. Last year I was also here to give a talk, but with a different focus and format, because last year when I was doing the presentation, there was nothing on the COVID-19, for example. There was, things were working very differently. But what we can see here today is that it is very important for you to know about crisis communication and dealing with challenging situations. If you come and see what has happened for the past years, I know that a lot of you went through from studying in university, studying in campus, and then suddenly you were told you have to leave campus and go home, right? And then suddenly you were told Okay, everyone now has to know what Zoom is. And a lot of you might not know what Zoom was at this time, isn't it? So you all were dealing with challenging situations, new way of incorporating things, trying to learn and trying to understand the whole graphs. So it is very important with what this topic is about. It is about dealing with communication, crisis communication, and dealing with challenging situations. Now, being volunteers, your task includes how to deal in a crisis situation. You must be able to know how to handle things, how to work accordingly to things. Now, I am also very proud to be part of the AYVP speakers team, because I want to share my experience. Last time in 2017, I was the lead module expert for cross-cultural communication and effective communication skills for the training of the volunteers for the SEA Games. Now, I know that majority are from Southeast Asia here, and I know that you were raised with the Southeast Asian game, the SEA Games. So what I did was actually telling people about how to communicate properly with people of different cultures, and how to practice an effective communication skill so that whatever happens, you are able to project a professional image, you are able to maintain a certain, do not avoid things being very chaotic. Okay. Now, let me explain to you first about the objective. Now, the objective of this is that at the end of this module, participants will understand the concept of crisis communication, and you are able to execute a crisis communication plan. I'm not sure if you've been in a crisis situation, or you are able to execute a crisis communication plan before. But in this situation, being volunteers, you need to be able to anticipate what are the problems that you can face when you are organizing events. Okay, I hope you are still with me at the moment. I can only see 5 pictures at a time, but I see some people are shaking their heads. It's a very positive thing. So when in crisis, what do you do? What are the situations that you have to deal with? What are the challenges that you have to face? And these are things that we want to train you today, so that when a crisis happens, we don't want you to add to the crisis. We want you to be able to manage the crisis. At times, you guys can add fire to the crisis as well and make things become difficult. I'm not saying the volunteers here, but anyone. So we have to have the best strategic plan in dealing with this situation, okay? Now, if we could go to what Combs described as crisis, suddenly this looks like a lecture in class, isn't it? But I have to share this to you about the objective and the definition of it, yeah? So the objective, Combs argue that a crisis is the perception of an unpredictable event that threatens important expectancies of stakeholders and can seriously impact an organization's performance and generate negative outcomes. So we want to avoid universities or institutions going through something with a very negative press or a negative outcome. Yeah. So crisis communication is perceived as crisis that is organizationally centered. So it's centering and affecting the organization in total, with a strong focus on maintaining organization's reputation. Has there been a company where you've heard something negative about it and decide to not go to the organization again, or not buy any products from that organization again? At times, it's very, very influential, isn't it? People would feel very, very negative with something that an organization has done. For example, if an organization pays below minimum wage to people, right? If they pay below minimum wage to the factory workers, then you would feel, oh dear, this organization is oppressing the people, and thus I will no longer support this organization. So if news like that were to break out, how does organization deal with that situation, right? How do they want to explain what are the measures they have taken? And do they need to admit their mistakes? One, is it even their mistakes? At times organizations needs to do what happens during a communication crisis. So how do we deal with that situation? And that is something that we have to look into. Now, a crisis communication plan is a set of guidelines used to prepare a business for an emergency or an unexpected event. Do you know what? When you guys are organizing an event, you must have a crisis communication plan. These plans include steps to take when a crisis first emerges, how to communicate with the public, and how to prevent the issue from occurring again. Now, being university students, all of you are university students, right? You have organized events, true? You have organized maybe a trip to an island, right? But what happens if suddenly, something happens on the way there? There's a bad accident. Or suddenly a few of you go missing. 5 of the students who go to the island goes missing. How do you deal with that situation? People are going to start putting blame, but you must be able to remain calm, okay? You must be able to understand how to deal with the situation. There will be 20 of you there and 20 people that the reporters want to interview. Make sure only one person gets to speak. Do you understand? When 20 people speaks, you have 20 versions of something. And the media might choose the most sensational story of all, isn't it? So it is interesting to see how you manage your crisis communication. At times, whenever there's an issue happen and you feel angry, like why does this person only mention it in a very straightforward way? Because you need to remember facts are facts. Sensational stories is something else. But you tend to read sensational stories a lot more. You want to know what happens, you want to hear the gossips or the rumors because those are exciting reading, isn't it? But the truth is, be true to with what you present and the image that you showcase, all right? So now, the business needs to interpret who was responsible for the crisis and how the issue will affect the stakeholders' relationship with the organization. Let's take the example of the COVID-19 situation and the universities. Who are the stakeholders involved? Students at one, right? International students and local students are affected, true? Yeah. And then it's also about the academics, right? Now, prior to this, as much as you might have for the first time learned the word Zoom, Google Meet, and Microsoft Teams, for example, right? Suddenly, this is the word of the year, isn't it? These words. That's also the first time for a lot of academics to know about online teaching as well. So it was a situation where, people were saying, oh, was it a situation where the blind was trying to lead everyone the way, but it is about how do we adapt to the new normal. And thus, universities have to come up with a crisis communication plan to deal with this situation, yeah? So every universities would have a different way of dealing with it, but the standard message must come across that don't worry, your studies will not be affected, isn't it? Were there times when the first time COVID-19 happens, were there times when you were feeling, oh dear, what's going to happen to my class? Oh dear, how about my assignments? Or, oh dear, the exam's going to get postponed, in a way like all these things were coming up to your mind and you're not sure what, until you get that message, that statement from your vice chancellor, isn't it? And that's when, okay, exam's still going on, or things have changed, because you want a clear voice, a clear, united stand of the university so that you are able to understand and see things clearly, all right? So being at the receiving end, you wanted a clear message. If 10 people are speaking with 10 different messages, oh dear, it's going to be, it's going to affect you tremendously, okay? Now, if we look at some theories and models, okay, there's this thing called the image repair theory, the situational crisis communication theory is another thing. Let's take the example of the image repair theory. I'm not going to explain to you about details because you guys are not necessarily public relations students, but you want to hear about the image repair theory. For example, if you look at the KFC situation, KFC in the UK went through a chicken crisis. Now, to all of you, I can deal with a chicken crisis. But when your business only deals with supplying chicken and not having enough chicken to provide to people, it affects your core business, isn't it? I would always get pissed off whenever I go to KFC and say, oh, they don't have fried chicken. And like, oh dear, what else am I going to eat? Although there's a lot of other choices, but you feel that going to a KFC and not having fried chicken, you feel, you know, Houston, we have a problem. You know, that's the kind of situation that you would feel. So what did KFC did? So KFC put in the local newspaper this advertisement. Did you see this? Can you see that it's not KFC? Right? Did you see the words there? It's something else.
Yes.
It is quite an interesting way of saying it, you know. I'm not going to say it because we're streaming live, but try to understand that KFC say, oh dear, you know, there's a problem, you know, we messed up, basically, okay? So they admitted to it. And you know what? People could relate to this, you know. Don't you think this is funny? Don't you think this is something relatable to people? So this fits into the British society, you know, and they say, you know, oh dear, we've messed up. So basically, you know, FCK explains quite a lot of things that describes the whole situation. So when they put that, people were angry that there was no fried chicken, but then, they could still laugh and say, you know what, yeah, KFC is kind of funny in some way, and we could relate to it, we could understand. So their image has been restored, isn't it? So it's about how they dealt with the situation and how they carried forward with that image, and people could have a joke at it and felt that KFC understand what the people are going through. Now, a situational crisis communication theory is something when you deal with the situation that you have to go through. For example, if a lot of you would have remembered the Malaysian Airlines issue. Do you remember that? With MH370 that went missing on March 8th. Yeah, that was a very difficult situation. Everyone wanted to know the story. But if you could remember, if you were watching CNN or if you were watching your local news, it was the same news being repeated. People were just stating the fact that on the first, maybe the first 10 hours, it was just people saying that it was a flight from Malaysia, departed, going to China. And it was just the same story because there was really no other information that we had at that time, okay? So how do you convey the message? Did you see how the public the press conference was explained? You know, you have to explain things. So it was a very difficult situation, but Malaysia Airlines had to explain what was going on. You know, they went through, if you go to their website, it was in black and white to honor, you know, to the sense of mourning that was happening as well. So you see, it is not easy. It's also about trying to grasp how do we want to explain to the public. So if you could see, Malaysia Airlines was not just a situation of an organization. It was a situation of Malaysia, isn't it? It wasn't just an organization. So it wasn't just it wasn't just a flight. It was the whole Malaysian carrier. So whenever Malaysia Airlines so if you could see in the beginning, it was a representative of Malaysia Airlines who was giving comments or giving the briefing. But later on, you notice that it was the minister who was giving the talk because it was a national issue. So for example, if you look at the COVID-19 situation, it's not an organizational issue, isn't it? It's not a Malaysia airline issue. It's not a KFC issue. Is it a Malaysia issue? In some way, it's the global issue. So every country was trying to deal with COVID-19. So the briefing must be very clear, so not to cause panic to the public, isn't it? And you know, you have to be very, very straight to the point in terms of the information you say, so that other people would not feel that they are, you know, in a panic mode. So that's why a clear form of communication is very, very important. Now, these are some recent communication cases that, you know, so KFC was saying that. Did you notice recently the Burger King advertisement? I'm not sure if you all saw this, but what did Burger King say? Burger King says, in these tough times, please go and eat at McDonald's, at KFC, at Shakey's Pizza. I'm so sorry. at Pizza Hut. I'm so sorry I'm giving you all these food examples. You must be hungry there. You're welcome to eat as you're listening to this online lecture. But Burger King, when Burger King did that, it looked so united, you know. It looked like, hey, I may not be a fan of Burger King before, but Burger King is so nice. And this is very much Asian values, okay? We tend to like nice people, you know? We tend to like nice organizations. We tend to say, yeah, Burger King is so nice to promote. And you know what? It becomes sales as well to Burger King, isn't it? I know that since the advertisement came out, I've gone to Burger King once to eat them, okay? So it's quite interesting to see, yes, how I'm affected with the communication plan. So that's not actually crisis communication, but that is a form of advertising during a period of crisis, isn't it? So it's quite exciting to see that. If you could also see some of the other coronavirus, COVID-19, we will look through at how some universities deal with COVID-19, how some countries deal with COVID-19 as well. Hopefully that'll give you some information. And this was some example that we gave last year. Do you remember in Thailand when there were a few boys who were playing soccer who got caught in the cave, and then water came in and they could not go out? But you know, there was a rescue mission to help that. That was amazing, wasn't it? And you know, the children were taken out safely, and you know, the whole world was waiting at their you know, in front of their television to see how it went on. And communication had to be shared, you know, stages by stages. And what about last year's situation of New Zealand? Do you remember when there was a massacre at the mosque in New Zealand, right? In Christchurch? So how did Jacinda Ardern deal with the situation and not make the situation worse by assuring people that she's with them and that, you know, this is an act of terror? You know, so this is some of the recent, these are some examples of a communication crisis that we've seen. In Malaysia, an item needs to be halal, for example, for consumption of the Muslim. So recently, not recently, I think this is a couple of years back, Cadbury, there were some lab reports that came out that says Cadbury did not test halal for certain things. Now, because of that, a lot of people felt that, hey, you know, but Cadbury rectified and, you know, showed progress and showed that, you know, there was some issues with that lab test until to gain back public's confidence. So to gain back public's confidence is very, very difficult. All right. It is challenging. How do you want people to believe in your organization? How do you want people to believe that you are able to present the same image that you used to be? So it is always very difficult, and it is dealing with managing perceptions, okay? Perceptions of the public, of all of you, is so important. When first TikTok came out, you guys were like, oh, TikTok, what's this? It's, you know, it's so childish, it's so immature, until you did two of those dance moves, you know, and suddenly say, hey, this is not too bad. I'm finding a way of escapism during this crisis here as well. So it's quite interesting to see that. But your perceptions change over TikTok, for example. I myself, when first TikTok came out, I was thinking, all right, so this is what the young people would like. But then I discovered I've learned so many things. I mean, academics, and I have to use this as well one day. Academics are using TikTok to teach about language, for example. Not only that, I see medical doctors teaching about anatomy through TikTok, and I've learned so much. Yep, that's that kind of bones. But it's about delivering it in a way that is understandable by people, isn't it? I find that so engaging, and you know, and they were able to communicate the message in a very light-hearted way, isn't it? My God, I've learned so many ways of taking pictures, taking photographs from TikTok. Have you guys experienced this? Or some of you have learned how to style yourself, isn't it? Where you jump and then you have a new outfit and you jump again and a new outfit comes out. So I've learned so much from that. My perception over TikTok has changed from, oh, this is something only the youth would like, to something that, hey, I should incorporate this in my classes in delivering some of the key messages. Okay, now feel free to give your input, and please turn on your mic for this example here. I'm just showing you some visual, and I want you to tell me what do you think, what do you see first in these pictures? Okay, so this picture here, can someone tell me what do you see in this picture?
Rabbit.
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 Dog. I see
Great.
bird, rabbit.
Dolphin.
All right.
Duck.
Duck. Okay.
Duck.
Right. Thank you. You see, when I'm hearing so many voices, I hear they're paying attention. That's good. Being online is a bit scary at times. You know, it could just be me talking to the radio and no one is listening. But great. So some of you say it's rabbit. Some of you say it's a duck. True?
Yes.
Are there people who can't tell what it is?
It's a bird.
You can. It's a bird. Yep. It's like a duck. Actually, it's a bird or a duck. Okay. Thanks. So if you do not see any visual, you can chat to me privately. Don't worry, this is not going into any examinations. All right. Now, if can you see my cursor moving?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yes.
So if you see that this is a rabbit, if you see that this is a rabbit, you will notice that this is the ears, right?
Yeah. Of course.
And this is the feet, the rabbit's
Yeah.
foot. Yeah, true.
Yes.
But if you see that this is a duck, then you would see this as the beak, right? And this is the wings of the ducks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What does this got to do with us being ASEAN youth volunteers? You see, something as simple as this can have two perceptions, right? You tend to see it as a duck because you have focused on this as a beak. You have considered this as a rabbit because you have looked at this as a feet and this as a bunny rabbit ear. When you do that, this is easy. So you could see, there's two perceptions here. One's a bunny rabbit, one is a duck, right? Let's take a look at this. What do you see in this one?
A face. A
Face. All right.
An emo guy.
A head.
A head, yeah. Okay.
A leg.
A leg. All right.
Someone who's
Lady.
knocking the door.
Someone wearing raincoat.
Okay. Great. So a lot of answers here. Yeah. So there's a person wearing raincoat, like going into a dark house, for example. Or it could be like an Eskimo going to an igloo. Can you see that? Right?
Yes.
Or it could be like a Native American head, for example, a tomahawk or something like that, right? A visual of that. True? It's because if you had focused this as the nose, and this is sort of like the hair or, you know, the feathers that they put on the head, then you would notice this as a head, right? But if you had actually gone into this and looked at this as a head and this as a big raincoat or an Eskimo jacket, you would look at this picture differently. And that is your audience. When you do things, people will have two different perspectives on things. You could be the Eskimo or the Native American. You could be a rabbit or a duck. But sometimes it's very, very difficult for people to see as well. So what do you see in this picture?
A girl. A girl. A lady.
Lady.
A woman.
A girl? A beautiful girl?
There's a little girl.
Yes, little girl.
A beautiful girl, a young girl.
An old lady. Old lady.
Old lady, wow, so much contrast. You know, the women are telling me it's an old lady and the men are saying it to me it's a beautiful young girl. I'm not sure where my volunteers are focused at the moment. Hold on, yeah. Let me, I've given you some of the visuals as well. So over here, some of you see this as a beautiful woman. Some of you saw this as an old, almost like witch, isn't it? Right? Right? Okay. So some of you are saying to me, doctor, I cannot see both. I only see the beautiful woman. Okay? Now, that's because you focus this as her necklace, right? And this is the ear of the beautiful woman, right? Are there people who can't see both? Can you just tell me?
Yes, I can see
Yes, I
both.
can see both
Yes,
too.
I can see both.
We can see both.
All right. So if this is a young lady, the lady is facing like this way, right? There's an angle that she's looking at, and this is her nose, right? And this is her chin. True? Because this is how you perceive this picture. But if you look at this as an old woman, it's almost like a witch, isn't it? Like this is her lips. True? And this is her nose. And there's a bit of a bump on her nose, right? And this, instead of an ear, is her eye. And her hair looks like old wrinkles on her face. True? Can everyone see the old woman?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
No. It's okay if you haven't seen, but try to look. This is the person's eye. Now, when you are giving these two perceptions here, two people are looking at things very differently, isn't it? Some people are so focused on the young woman, they cannot see the old man, the old woman, okay? So these are your audience later on. When they are focused on one matter, they cannot see another side of your organization. So if your organization were very, very efficient, proactive, very, very good to the customers, but suddenly a crisis happened and they forgot about all those other qualities in your organization. Do you understand? That's the danger of it. And sometimes it becomes harder for people to see the other perceptions. What do you see in this picture?
Bearded man.
A bearded man. Maybe like maybe like an old Greek philosopher, for example.
Yeah.
Like Socrates or Plato, for example.
His look like a cave.
Sorry, what else do you see?
A cave.
Cage.
Cave. Man.
Cage. Yeah. What else do you see aside from that?
I see like colony of monkey.
Colony of monkey. That's interesting as well. All the hair, right? That must be the hair. Okay. And that's what you saw it, yeah? What else do you see?
Old man.
An old man? Okay. Very much old man. Do you see it's like a wedding of a young woman and man there?
I see many men in here.
Yeah, you see men? Okay.
There's two people kissing.
Yeah, okay. You know what? Some people are saying that, you must be joking. How can there be two people under the grapevines, right? There are actually two people under the grapevines here. It's a picture of, like, for example, it's like an end to a wedding, isn't it? Right? When the groom kisses the bride, for example. Can you see that?
Yeah.
No yet.
Yeah, I see it now.
Okay, you know what? Some of you could not see it because things get harder, isn't it? And just imagine if this is the organization. You are so focused on the old man that you cannot see a young bride under the grapevine there. True? Can you see that? So that's the example I'm trying to give. So this is the man and this is the woman. Okay, and this is her gown. And they are like a very old, like a Robin Hood wedding of some sort. Can you see that?
Yes.
Oh, guys, it's okay. It's okay if you can't see it. You don't have to tell me and make yourself feel good. This is.
I still cannot see.
You still cannot see.
Cannot see this.
Same cannot see.
Then you are the chosen one, those who got to see, you guys are the chosen one in this matter. So it is very difficult. Now, later on we can go back, but don't worry, this will not be in any examination questions, so don't put pressure on yourself. But some people could see, right? You could see that this is the grapevine and this is the bride and groom here, for example. Now, remember this. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Okay.
The controversial dress.
Years ago.
Yes. You were a lot
the hot one.
Yeah. So, what color do you see?
Gold and white.
Gold and white.
Gold and white.
All right. So now you have team gold and white and team black and blue, right? And this is so exciting because some people are saying, how did you see black and blue from there? And I'm like, I see gold and white, all right? But it seems that the original color is blue and black, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and here you are saying,
Blue and yellow.
sorry, it's like blue and yellow. That's another combination already, isn't it? So guys, can you see this? At times, people have so many perceptions, and this, when they see it seems, but on two different angles. True. It is very challenging for this. I must say that it is a very, very challenging feat, because I only see this is black and gold and white, but some of you are saying, Doctor, we cannot see it as blue and white at all, right? Some of you are saying this is blue and black, and that's the challenge of it. How do you manage this perception? How do you manage people's perception? It's difficult, isn't it? Some things are easy. They can see both things. Rabbit, duck. That's so easy, isn't it? But some things get more difficult, like the old man and the bride and groom, because people cannot see the qualities of the other thing. Do you understand? So managing this perception is crazy. What I'm showing you is just a simple optical illusion. But what about real life? What about when you handle the organization later on? That could be quite a challenge, okay? So how do people compute messages and interpret things? You see, at times, whatever your lecturer tells you, 5 people can have 5 different interpretations of that, isn't it? Communication is very important. When the communication is not clear and precise, you will find it a problem. A basic example. Okay, we'll meet tomorrow at around 9. Okay. Firstly, 9, is it in the morning or is it at night? That's not clarified. Around 9 is so subjective. Jokes, this is a joking way for Malaysians. Around 9 can be 9 to 10:30. Okay. So, in Malaysian as well, people tend to say, when you say on the way, it means I haven't showered yet. I don't know why, but you feel that you have to say, oh, I'm on the way, but you're not ready at all, but you just feel that you have the need. And that is Asian culture, because you have to feel the need to make the other person feel good. So it's quite interesting. How do you compute messages and interpret things? So first thing, when you look at those visuals, you were selecting the visual that you wanted to see. You were selecting on the lines. That old man, you saw the hair and the beard, you cannot change already because you selected those lines that you wanted to see. That's why when you wanted to alter, it becomes a bit difficult, isn't it? And then you organize the lines and then you say, it's a rabbit, it's a duck. I like this organization. I sympathize with the organization. Oh my God, the organization has not done a good job. Oh dear, the organization has taken a way where they blame other people for the fault. I respect the organization. Even if they did a mistake, they still admitted to their mistake and come up with measures to deal with the problem. So that's how it is. As volunteers, you'll be doing a lot of projects, isn't it? And you need to know how to handle things in a crisis situation. For example, when I was dealing the SEA Games, we were telling people, what if there is a crisis that happens in the SEA Games? What if, what if 10 athletes were found to be missing? What do you do as volunteers? Do you go tell the reporters, hey, I've got an interesting story for you, yesterday they were out partying the whole night and then we never knew what happened. You don't want to do that, okay? You must be sure that the way you say things are very, very clear and concise. And the best thing is to not share too much information, just to share the key information that you need to do, okay? Now, there's 10 steps of crisis communication. So when a crisis happens, these are the 10 things that you need to do, all right? First, there's a pre-crisis situation, all right? you must anticipate crisis. When you're dealing with a project, you must anticipate crisis. When you are bringing 40 students on a bus, you must anticipate crisis. What could have happened? For example, touch wood, but what if an accident happened? Or what if the 3 of the children goes missing? All right. What if a lot of them ate something wrong and there's a food poisoning that affected 40 of them? How are you supposed to convey the message out? All right. Identify your crisis communication team. You notice that during a crisis, everyone wants to say something. Okay. Make sure that you set up with the right crisis communication team. For example, with the recent COVID-19 in UKM, it was headed by our Vice Chancellor and also, our head of registrar, for example. Yeah, they had the team. But who was in the crisis communication team? So we had someone from the health center, right? Or the hospital. They need to be in because they are the one who will be able to explain terminologies. We need someone from corporate communication, right? To make sure that messages are able to be shared and messages are able to be sent to people as well. Aside from that, we also had someone from student affairs, right? To make sure that all the students are taken care of. All of them are being taken care of. So we need to identify who's in our crisis communication team. If there's 50 of us in that project, we just need 5 people to manage the team. We don't want everyone to be involved because have you heard of the word too many cooks spoils the brew, right? When there's 10 people trying to cook the same thing, you will have a mess, okay? Basically, everyone wants to give an input. You need to be able to identify your spokespersons, all right? Who is the spokesperson to speak? And you also need to give a training to that spokesperson. The spokesperson must be able to convey the message very clearly, and he must be well briefed beforehand. Now, I think with the COVID-19 situation, a lot of Malaysians can share with you about our Deputy General of Health in Malaysia, isn't it? Dato' Nur Hisham, right? Now, he was the face of our COVID-19 in terms of he explained every single thing about COVID-19 to Malaysians. And he explained it in a very structured way. And the way he answers questions from the press is very, very structured, very straight to the point, and very factual based. Whenever we have leaders to guide us, we need leaders with that quality. We cannot have leaders who gives us a mixed message about a crisis, isn't it? You want someone to be able to speak to you and explain to you very clearly on what is happening now. Even if the situation is bad, even if there's a problem that is faced, we want the person to speak to us in a calm way, in a very structured way, and full of facts. And that was a very good example of Malaysians' way of handling with the COVID-19 with the highest person with regards to health to speak about it, So I think that was such a plus point here in terms of not to create chaotics. Now, if, he never says something that's not confirmed. He never mentioned things that are false or rumor-based, right? Whatever his answers are based on facts. So that's very important. Establish notification and monitoring system. We need to be able to be clear with what are the messages that people are giving to us. And also, when you write very, very clearly. You write things very, very simple words. You don't use too many bombastic words, okay? So that people will be able to understand. And also get feedback from people, all right? Try to get what are their points, what are their opinions on this matter as well, and what are the situation that they're in, all right? Identify and know your stakeholders. A COVID-19 situation is everyone in your country, right? It wasn't just about people working with the government. It wasn't just about school students or university students. It was everyone. It was the housewives. It was the Grab drivers, the cab drivers. It was also about the migrants, wasn't it? It was about the refugees who came in. And what about people, people in the kampong, people in the urban places? It was everyone. So after that, you need to develop press statements, write clearly so that people will be able to understand things. Do not put anything that's not confirmed or that is very much rumor based, okay? The next thing that you have to know is what happens after the crisis. Now, after the crisis, you need to assess the crisis situation. So you see, how did you deal with the situation? How were the message offered? Now, do you know if you watch any television show, there's always a post-mortem. After that, if you see a talk show, there will always be a post-mortem. How did we do? Whenever you handle projects, right, there's always a post-mortem where you see the success of the projects. And then you finalize and adapt key messages so that you have a post-crisis analysis and you are able to share this with your friends in another, with the new students who's going to be handling the project. We tend to forget how to deal with crisis. We tend to celebrate success, but overcoming crisis is a challenge, and strong leadership skill is very, very much needed. And all of you here being selected as ASEAN Youth Volunteers, you guys are future leaders. Learn about how to handle a situation, and you look at leaders around the world. Have a role model of your leaders. Try to see how they address issues and how they address problems and how they deal with each and every one of the situation. Now, let's look at, it's not Janice Arden, sorry, it's Jacinda Ardern, PM of New Zealand did, okay? I have to correct that, I apologize. She, during the situation with the massacre in Christchurch, she made sure that there was consistent messaging on her part. She reinforced the message with action, true? She never acknowledged, she acknowledged this matter as an act of terror, but she never acknowledged who the terrorist was, isn't it? There was a lot of simple yet impactful hashtags that was given, all right? They also refused to mention the terrorist name. They recognized flaws in law and act on them. For example, possession of a gun and ownership of weapons. They went through it, they recognized the flaw and act on them. They promised to cover funeral costs. They embraced the target community. Did you see this? A crisis had happened in a country, but the message of love was sent. Instead of the society being very, very divided, what you see was a group of people uniting, working hands in hand to ensure that the things were taken care of, all right? I apologize on the mistake in the name. So Prime Minister Ardern was there. So could you see the students, the Kiwi students doing the Maori dance, as that is a form of expression of understanding the hurt and pain that the Muslim community was going through. Jacinda putting on the headscarf and the others going there, trying to show that we are here with you. So you see, an act like that could have collapsed unity. But a strong leader has decided to unite the people, right? To unite the public and bring them even closer to one another. I've had the opportunity to visit New Zealand after the whole incident and interviewed some of the Malaysian students and even talked to some of the locals. And they said they learned a lot from what had happened. But the people of New Zealand stands united, and we will support one another even more. I've had Malaysian students who were in New Zealand who told me that, the locals were saying, do you need any help from us? Do you want us to walk you from one place to another? Do you feel safe? That kind of messaging comes from great leadership skills with a strong crisis communication team. And if you could notice, it only came from Jacinda Ardern. It didn't come from 10 other people. The message was clear, but it was uplifted by the whole public there. Let's look at the COVID-19. And for information, this is the Deputy General of the Ministry of Health, Datuk Nur Hisham, and he's a Malaysian, well, I would say he's a Malaysian icon now, isn't he? Every day, the Malaysians, previously Malaysians used to wait in front of the television, waiting for that 5 o'clock briefing from him. And you know what? I know that each of you have your own, the way your countries dealt with COVID-19 as well. ASEAN was quite hit with the COVID-19, and each country has their own ways of dealing with it. I'm sharing Malaysian's way, but I hope that all of you as well would have the opportunity to speak with one another and try to share how did your country deal with COVID-19, and was it successful to you? Now, as a young person, do you feel the message came across to you? All right. For example, there was a need for duty of care. Duty of care was everyone, basically. Everyone could be infected. You know, you have to know that it is a responsibility of the people. This is beyond, this is a pandemic that the world has not, I mean, at least our generation has not seen or witnessed. This is something that has happened to us that we need to live with, and how to deal with it. It was something that could have created panic. It would be something that could have created chaos. But as long as the messaging is clear, that is very important. You need to know your audience, your stakeholders, all the people. So, you know, regardless if you're a migrant, but whoever's in your country, you need to protect them. You need them to feel safe. You need them to understand how to prevent this from affecting them. You need to have the right spokesperson. And Alhamdulillah, Malaysian did have a very good spokesperson who was able to clearly get his message across. There's also a clear and consistent communication strategy. Do you know, we always talk about the 3S, but that's in Malay, right? We talk about, you know, social distancing, physical distancing. We always talk about wearing a face mask. We always talk about protecting others as well and avoiding crowded places, right? This needs to be clear. We cannot have a leader suddenly saying, okay, you don't have to wear face mask, actually, it's your choice. And it will cause chaotic, isn't it? Some people will say, hey, this person say I don't have to wear a mask, this person say no. So stick to a way of addressing the situation, a clear and concise strategy of dealing with the situation. Be open and transparent. In Malaysia, they actually mentioned this is, you know, this is a situation. Oh, Azizi, did you raise a hand? Do you have a question, Azizi? No? Okay. Being open and transparent and analyzing the situation. Explain to the public. If we have a number of 500 cases today, explain to them. In Malaysia, they actually explain even where were these cases at, so that we would know what's the situation. For example, places that needs enhanced, you know, a control order, for example, we need to understand. Study the matter. Were there any unintended consequences? Whenever you use the words, did anyone feel offended? Did anyone feel that they were not represented? Did anyone feel marginalized with the statement? So these are some of the things to do with the COVID-19 situation. What about education and COVID-19 as well? Let's look at your university. How did your university handle it? A clear and consistent message. Now, in UKM, we at the corporate communication team had actually made a lot of simplified posters that was shared to all students. Social media, emails, all were sent to students. We did not write such too much long paragraphs of things, because we know certain things needs to be addressed easily and understood by the people. So a clear and consistent message was sent. We sent in 2 languages. Everything was written in Malay and also in the English language, okay? So that there's international students. Never forget that, all right? So make sure you are very clear. And it is always that. Always remind, wearing a mask, sanitize, wash your hands, avoid crowded places. Those things were repeated. It was like a mantra. Everyone should know that by now. Be consistent with the ministry and national directives. Ministries have ways. If the ministry say a student needs to be quarantined for 14 days, make sure you follow that. Don't try to say, oh no, in your university is a different thing. No, follow everything that you need to do. Be open and transparent. The students and academics needs to be informed. You wanted to know what was going to happen with your semester, right? Some of you were saying, oh, we have to be sent home. What did we do? So a lot of you needed to be informed, but it wasn't just you. The academics were trying to familiarize themselves with the new normal as well. They wanted to learn about new technology as well. So a lot of academics were also going for training during that time to learn about how to use all of this information or all of this new way of doing things, all right? Explain the new education, teaching and learning. Explain to students about Microsoft Teams. Explain to students about Google Meet. Explain to students about Zoom. You cannot assume people know that. Provide academic support, counseling, mental health support. That's what we did. We had a hotline as well. Students, if you have any problem, you can call. Ministry had hotlines for students, for academics. If they have any problems, they have any issue, come and talk to us. Use the social media and official website and obtain and respond to feedback. If someone emailed you, respond to them because they are worried and they are nervous as well, okay? Now, I want you guys to think, how did your university handle the COVID-19 situation? Was it proactive? Was it productive and effective? Was it successful? Or were there areas that you felt the university could have done better in dealing with this situation? Now, when we are in a stage of reimagining education, the physical campus is now a virtual campus. I know some of you miss going to your physical campus, isn't it? Last time you were excited to be home, but now you miss your physical campus. Some of you are working from home. And how did you think, how are you going to embrace this new virtual experience to make it as strong as a physical experience? You know what? Today, you have the opportunity to make friends with over 400 people coming from different parts of the region. Take that opportunity. Start privately chatting one another. Start making contacts. You guys are going to make a difference. I see potential projects, activity that might take place under the new normal. You know what? There could be a lot of volunteering activities that could be done across countries, across regions. And today, this AYVP event is a platform for you to do that. And bear in mind, whatever you plan to do, come up with a communication crisis plan as well. Deal with the situation as professionally. So my tips for you as volunteers, always be professional, remain calm, don't add to the drama. You know, you guys are the representative of the management of the situation. You know, you don't make the situation worse. You don't start posting scary things, you know, or be careful with your social media as well. You know, I know a lot of you, especially with social media, you like to be the first in news. You, if possible, want to be the first person to share this information. Be careful. The first in news is not necessarily the most accurate in news. All right? Things go viral very easily. Once you've posted, people will share. And there's no way of coming back. All right? It's very difficult. Facts and precision. Be very, very clear with what you mention, with what you say, and what you express yourself. Do not use something that's not confirmed. Do not blame anyone just yet. You know, don't say, oh, it's this fault. It's the university's fault. It's the ministry fault. For information, whenever a crisis happens, everyone is trying their best to save whatever is happening. And also bear in mind to communicate and use articulation, proper articulation of words. Don't have to use bombastic scientific jargons, okay? try to be as simple as possible so that everyone would be able to understand. So in summary, it is important to have a communication crisis plan, and you always need to project a professional image in dealing with communication crisis. An inability to manage a crisis can lead to severe impact to your organization or your brand. You know what? It's been 1 hour, just like that. I hope that you've learned something from this session, and I hope that you've gained some insights on what it is to be a volunteer and how it is to be in a crisis situation. I'm excited to have you as my friend on Insta. Those are my details, or my Facebook. Coming from the old generation, I might be a bit delayed in my responses, but you know what? I hope to be in touch with you, and I would love to be your friend, as I would love to see what projects and activities you are doing in your home countries. So thank you very, very much. I wish you all of the best with this program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Associate Professor Dr. Latif, for the insightful talk about communication. Can we give him a round of virtual applause from everyone?
Thank you.
Yay!
That was a great session. But
Really,
before we end our session, I would like to request all participants and the panelists to turn on their video for a group photo session virtual style. Okay, turn on your video, guys. Okay.
We're getting used to this already.
Yes.
Everyone knows their best angle already.
I'm still trying to find mine, Doctor.
It's a learning process.
Yes.
Hold on.
Okay, we need input from the secretariat. Please inform once you guys are ready, okay?